hockey. Yeah.
My favorite.
It's Judd's Hockey Show.
Yeah, we didn't expect anything different from him, right? I mean, if anyone did, then they haven't watched his entire career. So, not only obviously happy for him, obviously the group.
This is a game, obviously you're missing Brodin and Merrill. Probably maybe some concerns about how you would respond defensively. How do you feel like you did?
We liked our defense, period. And, I mean, the 6 guys that played, and obviously Flower, but the forwards too. We competed, we blocked shots, we limited the core area stuff.
Hey, welcome into Judd's Hockey Show. As you saw, if you're watching us on YouTube right now, the graphic, the Wild wins 2-0 at Columbus last night. It's Judd, it's AJ Fredrickson. Declan is out, and of course AJ also joining us for several Judd's Hockey Shows throughout the course or the remainder of the season. The Wild has now, AJ, won 4 consecutively. There was certainly good last night. A couple first period goals, which has been extremely rare for this team. They basically haven't scored in the first period for about a month and a half or so. But I want to start with something that was brought up here because I think it's definitely worth noting, and I think it's a definite cause for concern that might not get discussed enough, and that is Jonas Brodin going on IR. Now he has had a reoccurring injury that caused him, or actually he got hurt about a week and a half ago or so. Missed a couple of games, and then came back pretty quickly and played. Something has obviously, it got aggravated, re-injured. I don't know the exact extent, and the Wild certainly not going to tell you. But that to me is incredibly important because this guy, the stability he brings to the blue line, and yes, Spurgeon's the captain, and Spurgeon is very good, but Brodin, playing without Brodin cannot be ignored, especially with a game like tonight in Toronto. Like, Columbus stinks. Toronto is very good. So when you, and the Wild's going to get some games now against non-playoff teams, but all that being said, that doesn't make them easy, and I don't think the loss of Brodin for any substantial amount of time can be understated.
Yeah, no, I'm a little concerned because they can't have him back officially join the roster. I want to say it's until after March 2nd, I want to say. So he's missing.
He does have to miss time, a certain amount of time.
Yeah, so it's that predetermined amount of time, but I think it's March 2nd. But you're missing, a handful of games. Tonight, you could probably use a guy like Jonas Brodin against a firehouse that is the Toronto Maple Leafs, just because they've now added that Ryan O'Reilly in that offense. Minnesota Wild legend Ryan O'Reilly. So, and then I will say, I know Dean in the opening clip said he was pleased with the defense and everything last night. That's not going to cut it tonight against the Maple Leafs. They are going to, Zuccarello can't center it to John Tavares or Austin Matthews or Mitch Marner or Willie Nylander in the slot, in a game that's in the third period, and you probably should have been up by more if it wasn't for some good goaltending by Jonas Korpisalo. But no, Jonas Brodin's absence here is going to be very apparent because we've seen the healthy scratch of Kalen Addison and maybe the gripes there. Now you're taking a pretty big defensive piece that, with Matt Dumba on the blue line, he was kind of supplementing that play, and that's what he's done now for, it seems, a couple seasons. Who's gonna cover the slack that is Matt Dumba's lack of defensive game? So I'm not excited to see it. That's for sure.
Might have been about a week and a half ago or a week ago that I said that when you watch Brodin, especially at the game where you can just exclusively watch some of his defensive shifts, he basically plays a defensive position and a half at times too, because he literally goes over and covers for, to you, what you're saying, Dumba. He'll go cover for him. And so, yeah, that's one. And so look, they are playing better. There are some things that drive me crazy. I heard my guy Gorg, and by the way, I'm a Gorg stan. I love Kevin. I watched Kevin win a state championship with the Burnsville then Braves, okay? There you go. So, he's the one guy that I absolutely love. But he was talking, I think it was pregame to Ryan Hartman, and they talked about, and I complained about this forever with Dex, but the identity thing was broached again. What is your identity? You're playing to it, and I think I've said this to you as well. They've known their identity all season long. They have to play hard. They're not that good. They're not that talented. They have one player who's incredible, but they are not that talented of team, certainly up front. And so when they play a grinding, sort of ugly game, they're going to have a tendency to win. When Matt Zuccarello, to what you said, and by the way, the pass he threw away last night was not the first. He's been doing that in the defensive zone more and more. When Matt Zuccarello gets it out of his bleeping head that he is Gretzky, or he thinks because he's got Krill that he's playing for the Harlem bleeping Globetrotters. Dude, this is a north-south team, not an east-west team. Now, Kaprizov, God bless him, is whatever he wants to be, but he's not surrounded by enough talent for anyone else to get away with that crap, which is why Hartman struggles at times, and it's why Sam Steele regressed, because they all watch 97 and think, oh, yeah, I'm part of this line. It's like, no, dude, you're not part of this line. Do your bleeping job and clear out for 97. But anyway, long rant to say how they have played of late is their identity, and if they want to play that way, they can win a lot of hockey games. I'm not sure about you, but I have not seen any sustained play like that, though, because it feels like no matter how long they play that grinded out style, we always get to a game where it's like, well, we're going hot now. Let's try and play like we're good. It's like, you're not that good. Last year's team and this year's team have nothing in common.
Yeah, it's missing that like dazzling factor. I mentioned this the other day, but I don't sit down and have that kind of predetermined thought of this is going to be a fun, enjoyable game of hockey to watch.
Yes.
It feels like a chore at times because you can see the script in front of you. Who was it? It was Dallas, I want to say, the other night, where they're leading late and it's a weak attempt to clear the zone with a weak backhand off the glass, and it gets kept in at the point by Heiskanen, and then they move it around a little bit, and all of a sudden you can tell, okay, they're dogging it, they're getting tired, and you can just, I smell that goal coming. I smell the goal, and lo and behold, boom, there it is. And then they have to like have the dramatic, theatric, oh, we're going to score 20 seconds left to get the win in regulation against a division rival and all this stuff. And I just want to have my blood pressure stay where it's at for the entirety of the game. I don't want this. Last night, they started hot, and I tweeted this. They should have played the way that the first 3 minutes looked, the entire 60. The entire 60 minutes. You're a better team than Columbus.
Yes.
You were peppering the net.
Brother.
You made Korpisalo make an amazing save to rob Kaprizov with the glove hand. But then, after we get those 2 goals, they're like, we scored 2 we scored 2 5-on-5 goals. We can take care of it. We're good. We're gonna coast. And all of a sudden, Boone Jenner starts having a little bit of a game, and Johnny Gaudreau shows up on that line, and all of a sudden it's like, what? You won 2-0, but I don't feel good about it. I don't feel good about it because you did have a struggling Marc-Andre Fleury who needed that type of win last night, but he did not look comfortable, I think, for a lot.
Oh, the first period, I tweeted this. He looked like he was handling a live grenade. He fought. If you are a casual hockey fan and you've heard the cliche or the phrase "fighting the puck" and you're like, what the hell does that mean? Go watch the first period of the game last night and watch 29 for the Wild. That is the definition. He was fighting the puck. And look, he made some key saves. I thought he got more comfortable in the second period. But again, Columbus is absolutely awful. So if you're like, well, I mean, that's an impressive shutout. No, it was good to get Flower back in there. Mm-hmm. It was good to get him playing time. And I did feel like his fighting the puck was not nearly as much in the final 2 periods as the first. But yeah, that was probably an ideal situation. Am I super confident right now in Fleury? No. Do I think it was a good first step? Yes. I also don't think it matters how the goaltenders play unless, to what you're saying, the team in front of them gets their act together consistently. So, I don't think that there are some teams in which the goaltending is just flat out bad, and there's some teams in which you are counting on a stud goaltender to play a huge role in pulling you through. But I really think that age for the success of this team, it's become very clear that is far more often determined by the 5 guys in front of the goaltender, as opposed to, well, we're in the playoffs and Philip Gustafson's going to lead us to the conference finals. No, that's not going to happen. What will happen is if the guys in front of him do their job, they give him a chance to be successful.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And it goes back to some of the play in the first portion of the season, that first stretch of games where it's like they're giving up touchdowns each night where, Dumba's just heels back, kind of watching the play develop, and all of a sudden, hey, look at that. Kyle Connor's on the back. Kyle Connor's on the back door wide open and, totally uncovered. Or it's, John Merrill picks up the wrong guy moving in. So you're double teaming the strong side winger when on the back door. It's a wide open, what's his name, whoever. It's the play and stupid mistakes, the lackadaisical passes and the no look spinning Zuccarello turnover in your own zone. Just move it up ice.
Yeah, north-south.
Sometimes it just comes down to what's the fundamental play that you need to make. Go back to your pee-wee, squirt, bantam days. What is the coach of, the kid down the street who got volunteered? He's got Hockey 101. What's he telling you? Move the puck, make the safe pass. We don't, like you said, you don't need to be the Harlem Globetrotters. Yeah. I'd be fine if you are the Iowa Wild instead of the Minnesota Wild. Just get the puck up the ice, and if you want to be on that top line and try something after you cycle around and Kirill does his 3 times around the world type thing and then try that pass, sure. I understand it, but you cannot do that in your own zone when you have a struggling goaltender who's battling whatever mental issues or whatever performance issues recently. You have to do whatever you can to lock it down, and that was not the play.
And on that play in particular, I believe the third save of that crazy sequence was Matt Dumba sliding in. So, that's a nice play. But, I don't. One is, do I trust a Goligoski Dumba pairing, which I think we're going to see again tonight? The answer is unequivocally no, I don't. Not at all. Goligoski turned over the puck a couple times last night again. I guess that whole thing confuses me beyond belief because Kalen Addison, I understand, has some shortcomings defensively, but Goligoski knows where he wants to be. I don't know his body can necessarily get him there at this age. Mm-hmm. And so, again, it's Dean sort of deferring two guys. So what do you make of the fact that as we record this on Friday morning, AJ, that the Wild is 3 points behind Dallas for first place in the Central, and they're 2 points behind the Jets. I believe when they lost to Dallas a couple of weeks ago, they were 10 points back, and they were teetering on the edge of a playoff spot, or actually falling out of one. They are now, if I'm not mistaken, because the Avs had a break. I think they played Sunday, and then they play again on Friday night. So the Wild has moved back into third place. But what do you make of, how optimistic are you about where they are right now? And I'll give you an interesting stat. The Wild against non-playoff teams, which obviously Columbus is 21-7-2. Starting with last night, 8 of their next 11 are against non-playoff teams. Now, you do get a couple against Calgary, which is a non-playoff team, but they're teetering there. So what do you make of the fact that the Wild appears to be in incredibly good shape right now?
It's very surprising, because if you watched just the games and didn't pay attention to the standings, I would say that they're trying to scrape together a wild card spot, let alone being third in their division. They are in spitting distance and then some to get up to the top, especially for the Stars, who have been such a powerhouse through most of the season, now losing 5 straight in a row, and the Wild, almost the complete opposite of that, winning 4 straight. Yeah. Just, it's pretty wild just how much, no pun intended there, just how congested the Central Division is, because, you go down, I think the Predators are not a bad team. They're not good, but they're also not bad, but, they're only 5 points back of the Avalanche in the 4 seed. So it's the fact that the Wild have that many games coming up against teams on the outside looking in makes me feel optimistic, but it doesn't do anything about the overall play of the team, because you can have those softballs and they can they can hit a home run on each one of these softballs that are coming up. It comes back to, sure, you can get in. I don't have confidence that you're going to be able to do anything in the first round against any of these other playoff teams, because you just don't have the defensive ability to really do that, or the 5-on-5 scoring ability to do it. You are relying on a power play, and one of the power plays last night was abysmal. Just terrible.
Oh, did you see the double minor power play that they got on Sunday against the Predators? Was absolutely, by the end, Dean was throwing non-power play guys out there. It was awful. And it was like, but you know what it all comes back to? It all comes back to times where this team feels like it sort of checks out. It feels like it either checks out or it starts to like say, hey, we're hot, we're playing well, we're a good team. And again, I will say this, no, you're not. You need to work really hard. Like you hit it perfectly. Last night is a game where you needed to keep up the pace that you started with. And they don't do it. And the Western Conference is really weird. So I guess I would attribute where the Wild stands right now as much to the fact that the entire conference is weird. And quite frankly, I think there's a lot of teams from what I've seen like the Wild. I think there's a lot of teams that are just up and down, roller coaster, inconsistent. Calgary. Calgary's such a weird team. Markstrom's gone in the tank. Vladar's playing more now. They supposedly made all of these great trades, the trade, because they lost Kachuk, and I think the masses were like, well, you're going to stink. But then they got Huberdeau and Uyghur, and so people were like, oh, no, great moves. This team should be good, and they've just been inconsistent. And so I just think that the Western Conference especially has so much inconsistency. And I do think that there's a good chance for the Wild to definitely grab a playoff spot. I'm sort of with you, though. When the playoffs start, I don't know what to expect. And the playoffs are such a grind. And the playoffs are, and I've said this to Dex for years, from a fan standpoint, they're fun. From a player standpoint, while they're going on, I personally think they're hell. Like the playoffs, teams will wear you down to a nub. I mean, look what the Blues did, right? Mm-hmm. Like the Wild just sort of shrunk. And so I think the difference here is regular season wise, if this team applies itself, it's fine. It's not great, but it's fine. It can win games. The question is this: can you take that style of play to the playoffs and execute it? And I mean for 60 minutes every night, no excuses, and hopefully guys don't get hurt. That's the thing is, can you, to what you're saying, against a far superior opponent to the Blue Jackets, can you play your fundamentally smartest, best, hardworking game, tight checking, not a lot of fun. Guys are going to get hurt. You just hope they don't miss time, right? Mm-hmm. And can you execute that for up to 7 games in round 1, in round 2, however long you go for? Do you want that? And I think unfortunately, I think what we saw from what I consider to be a far superior Wild team last season the answer was an unequivocal no. Mm-hmm. So why do I think that this team, which is not as talented, can do that? And to your point as well, the Zuccarello pass in the third period last night that got picked off will lose you a playoff game instantly. And they ain't going to miss that goal. No, they're not going to miss it.
Zero chance. And frankly, I'm getting a little tired of this, especially with all Minnesota sports. We dealt with it, it felt like, for an entire season with the Vikings, where they start hot. That opening drive is magic, pure magic, just drawn up, orchestrated, beautiful. And then they take the second in the third quarter off, and then they're like, you know what, darn it, I guess we probably should start trying again, huh? The Wild, all I'm asking as a fan is for you to play your game with the same intensity for a full game. You're not putting in, it's not like you're playing a back-to-back-to-back, like a doubleheader or anything like that. You're playing 3 periods of hockey. Just please play your game from start to finish. And if you lose, I will accept it, because that just means the other team was solely better than you on that night. Agreed. But if you commit to your game plan, and all I hear about is like the culture and everybody's buying in, so buy in. So buy in and just execute. If you play your game, because and back to your point of last year's team is by far better. Yeah. By far. It's not, night and day, but it's 5 o'clock and maybe noon. Like you can tell the sun's going down.
2 lines.
Yeah. That's all it is. Yeah. They just don't have that flashy play like they were last year. Like Marcus Foligno is not going to score you, 20 plus goals? He's just not going to do that this year. You have to be able to realize you have like 1.5 chances for lines to actually get out there and score. Right. And then the rest of the team has to shut down defensively, be physical, be that pest in the corner, like get under the skin of Boone Jenner or of Johnny Gaudreau and really make them hate that they're stepping out on the ice and they see Brandon Duhaime across from them. You got to grind out each win. And this team just doesn't, because they're willing to maybe start. And frankly, last night was a flash in the pan. I haven't seen a start like that from this team in weeks, maybe even a month or so. It was joyful to see.
They don't score
in
first
actual-
period goals. They did last night, but
yeah.
they don't. As a rule, they just don't score. I believe in the 7-game homestand, they went through a large stretch of that, AJ, without a first period goal at all. So you're everything you're saying is exactly right. And I think as sports fans, to take this conversation and expand it a little bit, I think as sports fans in this town, what's so maddening right now is the inconsistency of the Wild, the Wolves, who when they're playing well can play well, but a lot of times take a night or two off. And the Wild success right now, to me, is tempered by the Vikings. Because I went through the entire year saying, hey, let's give this team a chance. Yes, the defense is not good, but they've won 13 games, right? Like, let's not rain on the parade on purpose. Yeah. And you know, as soon as Sports Dad tries to be positive, they go into the first playoff game and get bounced, and they deserve to be bounced, you know? So you're right. And it's just, for me, it's hard when I have known the identity of this team all season long. For me, it's hard to get super excited because I always think, okay, Hartman scored 2 goals. He's going to think he's good again. You know, he's going to, because he scored 2 nice snipes against the Kings. Yep. And instead of me going with the Bally Sports North coming up next, Ryan Hartman has found his game. He's got his swagger back, his mojo back. That's not what I think. I think, oh my God, now he's going to think he's good again. And he's not. He's a hard worker. He's a hard worker who had a fluky, 34-goal season?
Yeah.
So anyway, want to get to one more thing, but before I do, Age, you mentioned buy-in, and buy-in's incredibly important in sports. And do you know where else it's important? It's important in weight loss, and that allows me to talk about my friends at Livia Weight Control Centers, who, if you buy in, and I'm going to give you a heck of a deal in a second. If you buy in, you are going to drop weight. A couple years ago, I lost 40 pounds, but most importantly, as I said, it's Livia Weight Control Centers, so it's all about keeping the weight off. So you lose it. It's not hard. The program itself is actually very simple, incredibly supportive, and then the dietitians help you maintain that weight loss. Join today, and guess what? You're going to get 8 weeks for free. You are going to get 8 weeks for free from a program that was voted Minnesota's best weight loss program. 8 weeks free. 855-GO-LIVIA. Livia, Livea.com. Livia, Livea.com. Your buy-in, and by the way, 8 weeks for free. Your buy-in will have you looking and feeling great and have your life really changed by the time spring and summer arrive. So take my advice and check them out. Livia.com. All right, the last thing I want to talk about, I'm going to end with what I think is an incredibly positive move. I love it. So the Wild has, and let's not talk about how the sausage is made here because it's boring and confusing, but the Wild is a cash-strapped, salary cash, I got to say this slowly, strapped team that right now, because of how things have played out in the evolution of the season, has a ton of cap room, okay? So this is all going away soon. It's all going to go away. It's basically, you are marooned on an island, and you have a very specific time period where you are going to see endless cases, bottled water, and you are so thirsty. But they're going to go away, so you better start drinking them right now, okay? Mm-hmm. That is what Bill Guerin and the Wild are doing. It started a week ago today, where the Wild served as facilitators and got a 2025 4th round pick, Age? Is
yeah, it was
correct?
A 4th rounder.
4th round pick in the Toronto St. Louis trade that saw Ryan O'Reilly go from St. Louis to Toronto. Last night we got another big trade. The Capitals and Bruins. The Bruins, no question, already good, at least from a personnel standpoint, got better. The Wild stepped in and said, let me help you. Let me help Washington and Boston here. And they sent a prospect to Washington. They got a 2023 5th round pick. They also very, very quickly acquired and then dispatched Dmitry Orlov, a good defenseman from the Capitals. And just like with O'Reilly, AJ, they retained 25% of his salary to help the Bruins with their cap situation. Now, the Wild still has, after both of these moves and only 25% salary retention on both, $11 million left in cap room to either do this or acquire a player. I think people scratch their heads, and it's sort of, I think it's seen as boring. Like, you're acquiring a good player, but then you're not, I think as far as the Wild front office goes, this is absolutely genius. I love it. If they're going to acquire a SKOR or something, that's fine. I almost don't care. But the farm system and the assets that this team continues to build, especially on the back of salary cap room that is going to go away quickly, think it's outstanding. I think it's don't sleep on what Bill Guerin and his staff are doing. I think it is genius.
Yeah, the more picks that you can get for Judd Brackett with what we've seen him do over the past couple of seasons,
fellow Judd,
as the kids are saying, let him cook, because he's been hitting home run, and maybe not home runs that we've seen develop yet, but it looks like it's going to go 350 down the line to the right. So it's purely, like, there's loopholes about it, and that's how they're kind of doing it and whatnot. You're essentially trading for a guy for about 5 minutes before the paperwork work is processed. But to break it down, they're just buying picks. They're buying picks, and to see like the real life valuation of some of these picks is pretty interesting. But it's so smart, like you said, because you have so much, and you have those bottles of water, but as soon as the calendar flips, somebody's walking by and taking all of that leftover water from you. You can't keep it. You can't take it with you.
It's being put on a crate and driven away. You're right.
So you might as well drink it when you can. So the fact that they are able to be a part of these deals, and that they're making, maybe attractive enough offers where they're beating out other teams, because they are not the only team that is, making the call saying, hey, we'll help facilitate this. These deals are not falling through just because the Wild are, maybe will they, won't they?
You're right. Yeah,
they are doing
point.
it. They're doing it because they recognize, hey, we're able to do this. We're helping ourselves later on. Why not help us if everybody else is going to do these deals? We'll walk in the door, we'll take a breath of fresh air, and we'll step right back out. We're going to help facilitate, because we're going to come out better for it with little to no scarring at the end of the day. So I love that they're looking at this as we can help ourselves and benefit from this down the road. Sure, a lot of people aren't going to really think too much of a 2025 fourth round draft pick by the Maple Leafs, and now you have an upcoming fifth round pick. But for a team that, they don't have the third round pick, you've seen that you can get some decent guys late, and it's not like it's not like the NFL draft where if you get in the fifth round, you're like, this guy is never going to make it. You have
bracket.
Zero.
But Brackett, Stephon Diggs was a fifth round pick. Yes. That's the thing is, I think because we're so pessimistic about executives in this town, but Brackett's the type of guy. I'm not saying he will, but he's the type of guy who I trust his Flyers a lot more than I would have trusted, let's say, Chuck Fletcher's Flyers, right?
Yeah.
And they now are accumulating enough picks where they could potentially package them with a player to move up. This is the more chips that you take to the table, the better. And as far as the prospects that they're trading away, in the Toronto trade, I believe that was a kid in juniors that they weren't going to sign and that they have yet to sign. They traded away, a Russian prospect last night, but clearly they are guys that the Wild's basically saying, we think we can exceed that guy with a potential draft pick, or at least the asset that resides in that pick. So I just think it's really fun to see a team that has a strategy. And you know what? Bill Guerin still could go out and get a guy. I don't know. I almost don't care at this point. Because again, you know what I said? The NFC is wide open, AJ. The NFC, the Vikings could win it. Maybe they'll beat Philadelphia if they play them, okay? And they didn't even get close. So I know there's excitement today. I don't mean to rain on all of your parades, but I'm going to by saying I think what the Wild is doing behind the scenes right now is really smart. And it's just good to see a plan that does not involve mortgaging things for what is probably not going to be the right timing. So, All right, sir. We are done. Be back. Declan's going to be back next week as well. I don't know when the next show will be. It'll probably be early in the week, but who knows? There could be all heck could break loose in Toronto tonight against the Leafs, and then we'll feel the need to come on. You know what? The great thing, Judd's Hockey Show. You just never know. Subscribe, watch us. We've got Mackie and Judd. We've got Purple Daily, the YouTube channel. We appreciate you all, and I can assure you we'll talk to you again soon. That's AJ. I'm Judd. See ya.